So you went to the first G League game there.
Yes.
They've been planning the G League team since pre-pandemic that they were going to move there. And that's interesting and all that stuff, but that wasn't what you wrote about. What you wrote about was really one of the big reasons why the G League team is there, Spears. And it's something that's becoming a more and more interesting topic in the NBA right now, and that is expansion. So what were some of the things you learned? You talked to Mark Tatum, the deputy commissioner, about expansion in Mexico City. Everybody just assumes, oh, when the NBA expands, it's going to be Seattle and Las Vegas. But they don't have a G League team in Seattle or Las Vegas, do they? They have a G League team in Mexico City. So what did you learn about the NBA's thoughts about someday having a team in Mexico City?
See, Brian, me and you are kind of like, I guess, kindred spirits. We never really talk about this, that we pay attention to the international basketball, world, probably closer than most. And I think it's small-minded for Americans to just assume that Seattle and Las Vegas are the best places for an expansion franchise. Mexico City is quietly like a really hotbed for this, for an expansion team. You got a town that has like 33 million people in it. Like, think about that. It makes New York look small. Their Central Park is twice the size of New York Central Park. This is the 5th largest city in the world. They have an NBA arena, Ready Arena, which I went to, and it's as nicer than most NBA arenas. And I think the only arena maybe that large is Chicago.
Yeah, it's 22,000 seats. I think the United Center is like about the same. Yeah, it's a huge building.
Basketball's been a huge hotbed in Mexico. Outside of obviously US and Canada, no country has hosted more NBA games than Mexico has. They have an NBA game coming in December that was sold out in 3 days, Spurs Heat, and there's money there. There's a lot of money, and it's also a gateway to Latin America too. The Capitanes was a team that was in the Mexicans top league, and 4 years ago, Adam Silver went out there with Mark Tatum. They had a press conference that said Capitanes were going to go into the G League, and obviously the pandemic has slowed that down. But you're right. Like, the reason why they wanted to try a G League team in Mexico City is just to see how it goes, the good and the bad. See how it's supported by the locals. There were 7,000 people there for a G League game. And the enthusiasm was there. Eduardo Nájera was there. He wants to bring a team. He's connected to Carlos Helu Slim, who's only worth 78 billion, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. One of the richest. He jockeys back and forth with Bezos for the richest man in the world.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the money's there, the arena's there. Television wise, the Capitanes, remember, this is a G League team. They're on ESPN Mexico, which has 33 million viewers. They're also on a Disney-owned network called Star Plus, which is shown throughout Latin America. When I went and saw the Capitanes play in the G League showcase last December, also, like, Nájera told me, I'm not worried about the rest of Latin America. I'm worried about Mexico. But the rest of Latin America is tuning in too, because this is considered like a Spanish-speaking team, right? Spanish-speaking franchise. They have players on their team from Brazil and the Dominican Republic. And so when I went out there to the G League showcase, this is the first thing that kind of, one of the alarms I got is, like, on Zoom, media were calling in after the game from Brazil, from Dominican Republic, from Puerto Rico. Like, they have made a pretty diverse roster of people on their team so they could, be attractive to all North America. And so this is, Mr. Tatum told me this is a trial balloon, that Mexico City is in consideration. And I know what's popular and what's expected, but I'm telling you, the more and more that I've researched Mexico City, I really think, especially when you have a team in Canada, to have one in Mexico, I actually think it'd be a really bright decision in a lot of ways for the NBA.
Yeah. So the thing about Mexico City is there's a ton of money there. Americans think a certain way about Mexico, and Mexico has its problems. We have our problems. But
Hey,
there's a ton of
repeat that sentence you just said.
we got a ton of problems in this
Yeah.
country.
Yes.
But Mexico City has a ton of money. If you've ever been to Mexico City, there are districts in Mexico City that are as beautiful and as opulent as you will find in London, in Paris, in New York, anywhere in the world. And one of the reasons why the NBA is interested in that is to get access to that money. There are wealthy companies, there are wealthy individuals, and frankly, from a media rights standpoint, if you move into Las Vegas, yes, you bring in the Las Vegas market, maybe some surrounding markets. You move into Seattle, you bring in, a medium to larger size U.S. market. You move into Mexico City, you bring in the fifth largest city in the world, plus potentially a big portion of Mexico, for which you can get a lot more, frankly, straight up money. And so one of the reasons why the NBA has maintained an interest in Mexico City, frankly, is money. Yes, there's the separate aspect of diversifying your fan base. Yes, there's the expanding and making it more of an international game, which has long been the NBA's mission. But it's about the money. The potential influx of money by bringing in Mexico City is more valuable than bringing in potentially an American city, which is why there's an NBA team in Toronto, but there's not an NBA team in Buffalo, because those two cities are quite different. And so the challenge is, Spears, and you wrote about this in your piece, is that there is a concern about, there's 3 or 4 concerns. Number one concern is security, because there are instances in Mexico where there have been, crimes and kidnappings. And if you are an NBA player and you have a family, you're going to want to have your children educated at certain level of schools. Your children are, you're going to want your children educated, in English. Hopefully they learn Spanish too. And you want to be secure. And that's part of what's going on with the G League team. Now, you said that the G League team gets a police escort to and from the games. That's not something that happens in NBA situations.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.